Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Journey to Purpose with me, Philippa Bagley. Today I have the wonderful Geraldine Crane, who is a serene spiritual hypnotherapist. Geraldine, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
First very easy question is, where in the world are you? Because it's nice to have a fellow Brit for once.
I'm in Leeds in West Yorkshire.
So people from Yorkshire, for those who don't know, believe that Yorkshire is God's own country. I'm
Quite proud.
And rightly so, but I'm from Durham, which is like the one above Yorkshire, and we
Yeah.
believe that Durham is God's own country, but Yorkshire's a close second, so we're all
Well,
good.
a lot of my family are from Hartlepool and near Durham, so
Nice.
I have an affection for there too. So that's fine.
Good. That part, we can agree that part of the country in general, the northeast and Yorkshire is a great part of the country. Definitely. Perfect. So, what is a serene spiritual hypnotherapist, and how did that come around?
So I also coach as well. So serene spiritual is kind of the approach that I've brought to coaching and hypnotherapy. Because most people when they think of hypnotherapy, they think of giving up smoking, losing weight. I don't do any of that stuff. I work with hypnotherapy to help people to connect with their own inner divinity, to connect to that point within that connects them to universe, source energy, insert whichever word you prefer there. But it's knowing there's a divine intelligence that you're attached to, that you are part of, not even attached, you are it. You are part of it. And it's using hypnotherapy as a really powerful tool to help you really deeply connect with that, to deeply connect with your own inner wisdom, inner power, intuition, and to feel the love that's there to support you. And that's what hypnotherapy is. I just love it. To me, using it to quit smoking is wonderful, but it's got so much more potential. And it helps to bring healing through. It helps you to connect with your inner child and bring her love, safety, and healing. There's so much you can do with it. But my particular way of working with it, for those who are open to it, is to also connect you with a team of spirit guides that are around you. Sometimes it's a past loved one, or sometimes it can just be somebody that you trust and feel safe with, who's a figure of wisdom. I have one client who the only person she really felt truly safe with and connected to was her cat. So we let her cat who passed guide her. But it's connecting to this loving, guiding energy to then guide us on where the healing needs to go, but also to support you as we go through the healing. Because part of my serene spiritual hypnotherapy is often inner child work, which is about connecting with a beautiful energy that's curious and playful, but also can be hurting. So it can mean going back to memories that are painful, but you do that with spirit guides and that support with you. And it's really beautiful and very powerful. But it's particularly powerful for those women who've experienced a relationship with their mother that wasn't a source of unconditional love, safety. They weren't made to feel that they mattered. They weren't cherished by their mothers. And that's something that when you connect with your inner divinity and your spirit guides, they bring in spades. They really cherish you. They show you how precious you are and how worthy you are of love, no matter what, and help you to start undoing some of that negative programming, letting go of some of those beliefs about yourself that aren't true, and start really loving and honoring yourself so you can live life on your terms without shame or guilt, without fear. And it's really, really powerful work. The coaching is where I share all those spiritual principles, ideas, and practices that helped me when I was recovering from severe anxiety, but also from an emotionally abusive relationship with my mother, with whom I cut contact 7 years ago. So I bring forward all those spiritual understandings that have brought me so much peace and help you to realize you are a divine being and you have the power to heal, but also that you have the right to hold boundaries. And actually, you are serving the world by doing that, by taking care of yourself, because you shine so much brighter and everyone benefits. So it's a big approach, but it's my approach. So that's why I call it serene spiritual, because it's about bringing peace and it's about spiritual connection. And most importantly, it's about love and enabling you to really cherish who you are.
Amazing. There's so much to unpick in what you've just told me. So, brilliant. So first of all, some of you know I also do clinical hypnotherapy, and I completely agree with like hypnotherapy is such a powerful tool, and it's such a gentle tool as well. And
it's
I'm sure,
beautiful.
I don't know if you get the same thing. I was like, well, you make me quack like a duck, and I'm like, there's
Yes,
no,
yeah, we all get that one.
I know.
Am I going to divulge my deepest, darkest secrets?
Yeah.
No,
No,
it's not
not
possible.
at all.
No, it's letting
And
people know, isn't it? You're in control here. Like, you're in
absolutely.
control. I'm just your guide. I'm just your
It's
guide and your
also,
support.
there is zero therapeutic value in quacking like a duck either. So, you know, there is that. but um but I've never, I do it very much for the trauma treatment, and also I don't do a whole lot of weight loss, but I have done something because obviously we all do it when we train, and I do a lot of phobia work. But the serenity side, I love what you're saying, because actually one of the things about hypnotherapy that I love for my clients is the hypno nap, and how calming and peaceful it is in itself, no matter what you're treating. So
Yeah, you don't even need to do anything, do you? You can
no,
put somebody into hypnosis. There you go, my love. I'll be back in 20 minutes.
yeah,
And
crack
that's
on.
healing in itself.
Absolutely. But I think so. I think you have that element anyway. But I just want to explore a bit more about the serenity side of it. So how do you take that to the next level? Is there anything else you actually do? Is it just more focusing
It's
on that inner calm?
it's taking that step even deeper inwards. It's going even deeper. So it's not just working, like I always say, the coaching works consciously, the hypnosis works subconsciously, and the spiritual works even deeper than that. So it's taking it even deeper and expanding it out. It becomes more expansive. So it's connecting with your own, your inner divinity is the best word I've ever, it's just my kind of explanation for it, but it is realizing you're a divine being and connecting with that energy, connecting with your soul energy, your inner power. When you do, you're connecting with universe, source energy, and that energy that runs through all things. That, I love the word source energy. For me, that explains it better than anything else. That energy is love. It's pure, unconditional, raw, undiluted, incredible love. And when you connect to it, that love comes flooding in. Now, for some, a lot of the women I work with have not experienced unconditional love before. And it can feel quite difficult. It can feel quite hard. So that's quite often why Spirit will first bring forward a past loved one that maybe they did feel about, like a grandmother or an aunt, or, a brother, or there can be somebody in their lives that they felt safe with often, and they've passed. They'll use them to connect with them first because that'll feel a little bit safer. Or if there is too much emotion, you almost use somebody that's a little bit more detached, that they find easier to connect to. If they're suffering a deep grief over somebody that they're very close to, and I'm helping support them with that, then you don't start with the person that they're grieving the most. There's usually somebody else they've lost that they love dearly, but doesn't have the same deep emotional tie, and they come forward first, and you can kind of ease them in. But it's kind of two-pronged. It's connecting with your own inner power, but it's also connecting with spirit guides. Now, different people that I work with are open to different things, and I work around the client. You can't do hypnosis any other way, right? You have to work with the client and what works for them. And that's why often, the first couple of sessions is just getting them into a really lovely safe space, getting them to create that for themselves, and then inviting a loving energy forward. And that's the only way I describe it. Is inviting a loving energy forward, and then it's what is brought forward to them. And this is what's really beautiful. I've done readings for a long time, and it's really lovely to tell other people about their spirit guides and bring messages, but for them to do it themselves is incredibly powerful. For them to feel that grandmother they miss so dearly, for them to feel that spirit guide who's really protective and strong and just there for them 100%, that's so much more powerful than me telling them about. And that love that comes through brings peace, brings joy, brings confidence, brings being cherished. It's a word that keeps coming through time and time again at the minute, is this being cherished. Because if you're cherished, you know you matter, you're protected and safe, and you know you're loved and accepted no matter what. And that's exactly what comes from this spiritual connection that you get. It's just beautiful. It's incredible.
I love that. And do you know what? I don't hear the word cherished enough, I don't think. Like in
No,
everyday vocabulary, do you? It just really stands
no.
out, and it has such a warm, cozy feeling about it. It's a great word.
But for so many of the women that I support, particularly around mother wounds, when you say the word cherished, it hurts. It really hurts. It's a hard word to hear because they haven't been cherished by that one person we would hope would. And so there's a deep hunger to be cherished, a deep, deep hunger. And that's what doing this work feeds, is that hunger. It fills that hole. They don't have to do some of the work themselves, and they have to be willing to feel those feelings, because you can't heal them if you can't feel them. They have to be willing to face the wounds and do the work. And it's not easy. It can be deeply emotional, but it's also incredibly life-changing.
Oh, I can imagine. And I think so. The area that you focus on, that mother-daughter relationship, it's not.
Mm,
I don't think it's a trauma that we talk about enough, because people find it
no.
hard to believe that mothers don't
Mm-hmm.
cherish their children. But
Mm,
obviously, you have lived experiences of this.
mm,
How was this? Why you went to? Well, obviously, this is probably why you went for the work. But was this
mm.
part of your healing journey, doing the work for yourself and then helping
Yes.
others?
Yes, I came to doing this work when I cut contact with my mum. I just left a job working. My career background is as a probation officer, and I specialised at some point, not by choice, just by the workload that was put on me, in working with domestic abuse perpetrators, which is extremely challenging work, as you can imagine. And then I've also got experience working in substance misuse. And if you've worked with substance misuse, you can see that there is a real overlap between addiction and trauma bonding, which can happen in an abusive relationship. So that was really useful. And then I went to work with women's charities supporting survivors of domestic abuse. And it was through doing that work at the same time as becoming a mother myself, and at the same time as seeing a counsellor, because I was struggling with anxiety and had been doing since I was very young. I started to realise that actually the anxiety that I'd been battling was not because of being my mother's carer. I was my mother's carer from being 12 and took care of her physically, but I took care of her emotionally as well. And it was the fact that I was having placed on me the responsibility for her well-being, her emotional well-being. So whilst I would help her wash and dress and help her with keeping the house clean, I was also the one there when she was screaming and hitting herself around the head. I would take scissors off her as she was trying to hurt herself. And I was a very young child. And then even as I grew older, I became her confidant. She shared with me details of sexual abuse when I was very young, only 12, 13. And she just put this, it's called parentification. So when you put in the role of being the parent, and it causes deep wounds, you develop an identity that you only have worth if you're serving and helping. And if you're not, you're selfish and you're a bad person. And my mother used to put me on a pedestal. Look, you're amazing. You take care of me. And then the minute that I didn't get her a drink, or I was giggling with friends in another room and not involving her, or I was daring to go out and try and have an identity and a life of my own, she would rein in with the guilt trips, and there would be underlying threats of self-harm. And that kind of thing causes really, really deep wounds, and real people-pleasing habits develop, feeling a responsibility for everybody's well-being, and you carry around this heavy weight. I ended up with shoulder problems, back problems, and ended up with autoimmune conditions, and it really affects all areas. And so when I finally, at 37, came to realise this is what had been going on, that actually I'd been going through this cycle of abuse, of being put on a pedestal and knocked off, and then put on a pedestal, knocked off. And I would have these big anxiety breakdowns, and she would scoop me up and rescue me, but never realising she was the reason I'd got them in the first place. So it was having to really take those rose-tinted glasses off and see what was going on for real, and starting to realise this was abuse. to put it in really harsh terms. It's funny because abuse is not a word I use often with my clients. It's very hard to hear that word in terms of your own mother. So I talk about harmful behaviour rather than abuse. But once I finally started to realize this is what's going on, I started trying to put those boundaries in place, trying to hold space for myself, trying to make sure she wasn't causing harm to my children, because there was things she would say and do that were not appropriate. And the more I did that, the worse she got, and the more resentful and more angry. And it just got to a point where I couldn't cope anymore. And then I lost my job at the charity I was working at, which I absolutely loved. And I just hit rock bottom. And it was at that point my counsellor just said to me, what would life look like without her in it? And she was the first person to ever give me permission to think about that maybe I didn't need to keep this person in my life, no matter who she is. I don't have to have her in my life. I'm allowed to give myself the space and time to heal. And at first my response was, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. But then I tried to put another boundary in place, and she got so angry and so nasty that it clicked. And it was like a real, enough's enough. I can't do this anymore. It felt like I was swimming in poison and I had to get out. And so I cut contact with her, and I cut her contact with my children as well. And I'm lucky she has respected that. I don't believe she's respected it out of a love for me. I believe she's respected it out of playing the victim. And this is my perception. It could be viewed another way, but she has never made any attempts to try and apologize or try and mend things between us. She's just stayed away, which would tell me, it would tell me that, and from communications from people who have seen her, that it's very much, well, she's done this to me and how dare she, and staying very much in that victimhood. And I believe that this behavior is a result of possible covert narcissism. And I've had to do a lot of, in my healing, do so much research around narcissistic behavior, around emotionally immature parents. And that helped me to realize it wasn't my fault. But it didn't actually help me heal, because that's the focus being on her. And I realized that I could only heal once the focus was on me. I had to accept that she is who she is. She's going to behave the way she's going to behave, and I can't change that. That I can only focus on me, and I can heal. That the wounds she caused are not my fault, but they're my responsibility to heal, to make sure I'm not passing it on to my children. And that's when I saw a counsellor for a good deal longer, and then trained in hypnotherapy, and during lockdown accessed spiritual coaching, and then just read and read and read. And I've gone even deeper with my own hypnotherapy, had a lot of past life regression and inner child work. And it's just everything that has worked for me is what I now bring to my clients. Plus, I just keep researching and learning.
I do think, we all do the things. We work with the areas we know best, but I think the stuff that you've pulled out there is really important just to focus on for a moment. So you already had the parentification of you as a child, but the cycle that you are in with pedestal trauma, if it wasn't a mother-daughter or a parent-child relationship, we would call that abuse straight away. We would say, if this was a man and a woman, or any kind of partner relationship, we would call it out. When parents and children are involved, society says, there is this unwritten expectation that we look after our parents and our families as we get older, and in other cultures that we owe them. In other cultures, it's even bigger than I think it is in the UK. And I think that's why it's really important that people hear your story, because to recognize that we wouldn't tolerate this in another kind of relationship. So why do we tolerate it in the parent-child relationship?
It's always worth thinking, if I describe this as a friend or a partner, what response would I get?
Absolutely.
And just because somebody has given birth to you does not give them a right to harm you, and to completely dismiss the harm that they cause and continue harming you. Because any parent can cause harm. God knows I'm not the perfect parent. But the difference is, I always say the difference between harmful and toxic is that inability or unwilling to acknowledge the harm, to take responsibility for it, and to give space to heal. If they're not willing to do that, you're left with very little choice. And it doesn't necessarily mean cutting contact altogether. it's different. Everybody's different. I would never tell anyone they need to cut contact. That's a very personal decision. And usually you've tried everything else first. And you've got to kind of go through that process of trying everything else first, because it's too painful. You know, it's so hard to cut contact with your own mother. It really is. It's extremely painful. However, for me, it's one of the best decisions I ever made, and I've never regretted it for a moment.
I think that's what it comes down to. It's what works for you. I've got a client I work with, and parent-child issues again. His mother abandoned him very, very young for various reasons, and his father died, unfortunately. But he didn't want to give up on the relationship. But what we found was, by him putting his boundaries in place and him shifting his behavior, thankfully, she changed hers. And they now have a relationship that can happen. But of course, it doesn't always happen.
No, and it's being really clear of when you have a right to hold boundaries. You can't control how they're going to respond. And it can be that you hold the boundary and they go, oh, okay, and they respect it. Or it can be that they get worse. And that's an indicator, not that your boundaries are too strong, but that they're not strong enough. And just a point I wanted to go back to about this kind of societal attitude to mother-daughter, mother-son relationships is, this, she's your mother. She carried you for 9 months. She fed you. I mean, that's basic stuff. Like, I feed my dog. Doesn't give me a right to abuse him.
Absolutely.
But I think what's really clear is when you decide to have a child, whether you adopt or you give birth, when you make that decision, you commit to the child. You commit to caring for that child, to nourishing, nurturing, protecting, and keeping them safe and loving them. You make that commitment, not the other way around. It is the parent, and it doesn't even matter how old you are either throughout that relationship. The child is always the child in that relationship. Always. It's funny. I've worked with somebody recently who it's the other way around. They've had their child cut them off, and I got the pain that they're in. But it was what they needed more than anything was somebody like me to say, you're not an abusive mother. And it was so easy to tell, because when she talked to me about the relationship, she didn't talk about herself. I'm worried about them. I'm worried about their mental health. I can't be, but he's asked me to back off, so I backed off. I was able to really see very quickly. I don't know what's going on for the child in that situation, but I was very quickly able to say, you've not been abusive, and you're not, very clearly say you're not narcissistic. You are focusing on the child and not on yourself. And that tells me so much. She was ready and willing for that child to come and absolutely tell them everything they've done wrong. She was ready to hold space. She was ready to take responsibility. She was ready to bend over backwards so they could still have a relationship. That is a completely different thing. And it's really important to acknowledge sometimes it is that way.
I think from what I see, it is so much harder growing up now with the internet. And not to say that, like, my parents remember rationing because they were of that generation. I was 80s and 90s. I actually think 90s was probably the greatest decade recently, because nothing really bad happened for us in the UK, at least. It was a fairly calm
we were
time.
Right in the 90s.
We were all right in the 90s. 2000 things got messy again. But the one thing I hold on to, which is the power of the internet now, for good and bad. And the thing that I find disturbing, and I had this with another friend and his family, is their cousin would basically threaten to call social services on her parents if she didn't get her way. Or she would self-harm if she didn't get her way. And there are mental health challenges there as well. But the thing that worried me the most was the internet gave her the ideas for a lot of these things. There's forums about, if your parents don't give you what you want, do this. And it is things like make their lives hell for various reasons. And to your point around those parents who want to do the best for their children, and yet we have this horrible, sometimes good, but often bad source of information which goes, this is how you get what you want. And it's kind of creating mini sociopaths all over the place, because it's just no filter, there's no stopping.
There's a big difference, isn't there? Because there's there's people like me and other coaches and therapists that I know that are on social media sharing what an abusive mother can look like and feel like and experience, and trying to give you the strength to hold your boundaries in a healthy way for yourself, and to honor the wounds and help you heal those wounds. That's a very different area of the internet, isn't it? That's just, and very harmful.
But I think that's why it's important what you said is, when the mother came to this instance, when she's focused on the child, or when he's focused on the children, whatever, that is, well, none of us are perfect parents, and we all
No.
we all make our children do crazy things where we think are good at the time or whatever. But there is a clear difference between abuse and sometimes like overparenting. Sometimes not.
Overprotective.
Yeah.
I mean, I work with, not everybody I work with has a deeply abusive mother. In fact, many don't. I actually work with a lot of neurodiversity as well. I work with people just trying to help them understand their neurodiversity and honor. It just happens that I tend to attract a lot of people like that because I have ADHD. But yeah, I work with a lot of people who it's just the mothers were doing their best but cause wounds when they, and it's not about blaming the mothers. It's never about blaming the mother. It's just about acknowledging a wound has been caused so we can heal it. If you don't admit you've been stabbed in the side, we can't take the knife out and clean it and heal it. So it's about acknowledging it. And it's accepting that everything your mother did, she did because that's the best understanding she had in that moment. Everything my mother did, she did because she was scared. She was scared of losing me. She was scared of losing her support. She was scared of, there is that with narcissism, that fear of losing their supply. But a lot of it's around fear of abandonment, fear of rejection. And she kept acting out of fear, but she was doing the best she could with the understanding she had. Like, I coach very much from an approach that, we all live in the experience of our thoughts, not our circumstances. So you experience your thoughts about a situation, you experience your thoughts about people. So she was experiencing her thoughts about a world where she felt everything was against her. She was experiencing me as the one person that wasn't against her, but I was starting to pull away. And that brought in a desperation and a clinging on, which in the end suffocated the relationship. But so it's realizing she wasn't doing that out of a nastiness. I don't believe that for a minute. But she was doing it out of a desperation and a fear. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong. I've come across some people who are just nasty, but it's very rare. It's very rare. And even them, that's because they're experiencing what they think is a very nasty world, and they have to be nasty to survive. So again, they're doing the best they can with the understanding they've got. And it's just once you can accept that, like once I really accepted that, my heart went out to her, but over there, like away from me. Yeah.
And I think
that's
the thing.
fine.
And like you say, you can understand, you can appreciate, you can even empathize, but if it's not healthy for you, it's still okay to have those boundaries and in some cases cut things off. And I think that's again really important to understand. Now, you talked about past life regression, and obviously I know what that is, but for many people it can be either they don't know, or it can be quite a controversial subject. So do you want to just talk through how you incorporate that into your work?
So it can be that sometimes the wounds we're carrying also have a thread into previous lives. So for me, I've experienced a difficulty in my relationship with my mum, not just in this life, but in previous lives. And so by revisiting those lives through hypnosis, you can bring healing to them. Now, it can be that you revisit a past life, a past experience, and it's making it clear as well with past lives. Some people think it's a past life as you in that past life. Now, this is very complicated, and I don't want to go into it in too much detail, but your soul in that past life has different personality, different tool set, different mind and a personality to experience that world. So, I've gone into past lives where I've been somebody who's very chilled out and very just gets on with things. I've been once a big tall African guy. I've been a fighter pilot, different, they weren't me. It's a part of my soul that was experiencing that life. But often wounding that's caused in that life can then be a thread into other lives. And by healing what's happened there, you can heal stuff in your own life now. A good example is somebody I worked with who had a fear of heights, and it was an incident in a past life where they'd fallen down a cliff, broken their back, and their body was never found. So by going to this past life, releasing the anger that this energy felt around dying this way because they were pushed, and then being able to move the body and bury it and let their loved ones see what had happened. So there's things you can do in those past lives. Quite often it's a releasing of emotion that needs to come out, or an acknowledgement. I had a past life I experienced. My mentor, who I've worked closely with for the last 18 months, is a specialist in past life regression. So I've done a lot of this work on myself. And recently I had a particularly nasty gynecological procedure done without pain relief, as they often do to women. Another one of my bugbears.
With you on that.
Yes, yeah. So it was extremely painful, and it brought up a lot of trauma. So I was very blessed that my mentor took time on his day off to help me release this trauma, because a few days later I was having a mastectomy and reconstruction using my stomach tissue, which is a very, very big operation because I'd been diagnosed with breast cancer earlier. And so I had a lot going on, and I couldn't cope with this trigger that had been caused by this awful procedure. So he put me in a hypnosis, and as I went into hypnosis, I immediately was taken to being in a Mayan village. It was around 500 AD, and I was in a village where all the women in the village were tied up around in a tent, all tied up with a big fire in the middle, and they were being tortured and mistreated by religious zealots. And I'm not going to go into detail because it was a particular, because I've been doing this work a long time now, I'm able to experience quite traumatic past lives. When you're new to it, that doesn't happen because it would be too much. You kind of have to ease into those things. That's where we say hypnosis is very gentle. The subconscious does not take you where you can't handle. So in this, going back to this experience, it was about releasing the anger that I felt and the complete, because the people that were torturing these women were women. And it was just there was so much anger and helplessness that I wasn't able to protect. So I was one of the leaders of the tribe, and I wasn't able to protect my tribe. And I got very badly hurt as well. So there was releasing all that. But what was also really lovely is as I cleared all the energy in this past life, I was then able to be with myself as me, with the energy from that past life. And she just said to me, thank you. We needed the trauma to be acknowledged. We needed this to be acknowledged. And she gave me a wreath of flowers around my neck and said, you're part of our tribe now. So it's funny how you can experience it as that energy and release the emotions, but then you can also connect with that energy as yourself. And either they share wisdom or you share your wisdom, or there's just a bonding that can happen that can bring really powerful healing. I could tell 100 stories about past life regression because I've experienced so much of it myself and seen amazing things with my clients too. But it can bring really deep, profound healing.
I would say it can be, I think it can be controversial because it's not an area that people necessarily understand. And like you say, you've done a lot of work. And the thing that worries me the most is you get people who do like an online certificate and then they're qualified.
No, don't do that.
And that's just the worst thing in the world. And that's where, we both know the mind is so powerful, but the mind doesn't know what's real and what's not real. And so you can implant suggestions and memories.
Yes, you can.
And if you don't, and this is why I think finding someone qualified like you who has done the work is really, really important if you're going to go down that path.
Really important.
And it's the same for anything.
Yeah, it's really, really important somebody who's fully qualified in past life. Like I did it as part of my training, but I did like an afternoon on it. Whereas since then, I've worked. Steve Burgess is an expert in this field, and well worth checking out if it's something you're really interested in, particularly past life regression. Steve Burgess is to me like the top person in this field, and I'm very blessed that he's a friend and mentor. And anybody who's been trained by him, he trains to a very high standard. And he has people that if he can't see you, he's got people he can refer you to, because he's trained so many people now. But yes, it's really important to get somebody who really knows what they're doing. It's really important to do it with somebody you feel safe with. If something's telling you, I don't feel safe with this person, don't do it. It doesn't matter how well qualified they are. Do not work with somebody you do not. And I would say that with any hypnosis, any coaching, if you don't feel safe, trust that instinct and move on and do it with somebody else.
Oh God, I had a client who'd had a panic attack with another hypnotist trying to treat phobia. I was like, what? Like, why? If you have those feelings at any point, get out. You have to trust the therapist. Absolutely.
Yeah. If you and it's funny that trust can develop.
Yeah.
When I first worked with Steve, I felt safe with him. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gone to work with him. But it was about 6 months in of working with him, suddenly the trust went to a whole other level, and that's when the really deep stuff came out, and when we've been able to enable like the even more powerful healing. And I see that with my own clients. Even though they trust me on a conscious level, getting to that trust of a subconscious level takes time. But when you do, the healing that can come forward is so much stronger. But if you don't feel safe, go and find someone else. And I would always say, find somebody who has experienced their own therapy in a lot. Like I've done a lot of hypnotherapy myself. And I think it's particularly important with hypnotherapy because there's so many different ways you can experience it. Like I've had moments where I've gone to an inner child, I've gone to a very early childhood memory and experienced everything in textures and patterns, because a child's subconscious experiences the world in a different way. Now, if I hadn't experienced that for myself, I might not know how well to guide somebody else through it. So the more and more that I've done my own hypnotherapy, the more and more I find I'm able to help people and guide them through theirs. It's been the best training I could possibly have. And so I would always look for somebody who's still having therapy themselves, because that's really important.
And I think a lot, like where I did my hypnotherapy training, we have ongoing CPD. We have to do so many hours on ourselves, and this is where I worry about people who don't have that. I worry about people looking for therapists who don't have that experience, because you've got a very gentle tool that could do a lot of harm if not used correctly. So definitely.
Well, this is it. It's extremely gentle. And you have to really try. Like, it's quite hard to do any harm, but when you do cause harm, it's deep because it's subconscious. I mean, it can be it's making sure they really know the wording they use. Sometimes it's even with meditations that you're listening to, be wary, because they're hypnosis really. And I've gone on certain meditation apps, and you can hear them on the recording saying, you're trying to be more positive, you're trying to be strong, and you're like, oh no,
no.
God. Like, because we know as hypnotherapists, try is like, you only use the word try if you're trying to get them to stop doing that thing. You're like, you're going to try smoking. The harder you try, the harder it gets. That's the way we use the word try, right? Because it focuses on the effort, not on the doing. And I've heard it before in meditations and just gone, oh my God. So there's even being wary of what meditations you listen to. Is that person qualified to really be making those recordings? Because you could cause some damage.
So much. Right, what's next for you in your mission for improving relationships and everything?
It's funny, I'm feeling a much more of a shift to I still will always specialize in mother wounds. It's obviously something that's very close to my heart and means a lot. But I'm feeling a pull more and more to just helping anyone who, I think this is coming a lot out of working with a lot of neurodiversity and other wounds that people are coming to me with, but helping people to really shift out shame and self-doubt and fear and into love. But the word cherish is moving into cherishing themselves. So I have an online program which follows my serene way of healing, which goes through stillness, emotions, reconnection, energy, now, and empowerment. And they're all modules. It's a rolling program, but they're modules you can go through that have videos and recordings and journal prompts, things like that. But I know now, it was very much focused on mother wounds before, and I know now it's going to be opening up, and it's much more about that cherishing, how you cherish yourself and knowing that you're a divine being, bringing that spiritual love in even more. And that's also, there is a book there which I have started and have submitted to Hay House a couple of times actually. It was going to be titled You Do Not Owe Your Mother Your Peace, which is powerful and I love, but I'm feeling the word cherish. Like, I know that the program is going to be called Cherished Within, because, or Cherished From Within, I'm still working on it, but it's that word cherish is going to become a real focus of my work. That's what I really feel is my mission, is to help people to cherish themselves by realizing they already are, you know, that there's a loving universe that cherishes them already. And by connecting with it, they can start cherishing themselves. Because I do a lot of spiritual work as well. I run circles helping people to spiritually connect. It's not, you know, I don't teach any in-depth rituals or complicated processes or anything like that. It's very, I always see myself as I'm that person you connect with, and then you dive deeper into spirituality. I'm the introduction. And it's just in the circles, we just sit and talk about spirituality in a place that's safe, and there's no judgment, there's no competition. We can get that a lot in some spiritual circles. There's no competition. I don't allow it. And also I share my way of connecting spiritually. So through stillness, allowing and trust, and through, you know, very basic card readings, through working with dowsing crystals, but with a full encouragement of play with it. Do this your way, find your way, and discussing that and sharing that within the circle. So that's also a real big part of my work as well.
Amazing. I think I said earlier, cherish isn't used enough, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that grows as you do it. If people want to find you, how can they find you?
I'm really easy to find. My website is just geraldinecrane.com. Luckily, having a name like Geraldine makes me a little bit easier to find, which is great. But I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, I am on TikTok, but I'm moving over to YouTube at the minute because I think that long form, I've got a YouTube channel called, trying to remember the actual title now, that's terrible, isn't it? Spirit Journeys Through Healing the Mother Wound. It's me sharing those stories, much like, you know, the Mayan village and things that have come up for me spiritually as I've been healing mother wounds, and from before that as well, some deeply spiritual experiences with my grandmother as she was passing, and really beautiful experiences I had with her, my first encounters with spirit guides, and sharing those stories, but also sharing the stories of the people that I've worked with, and some of the amazing experiences that I've been able to be really honoured to be witness and be part of, all to kind of bring forward this message that there is a lot of love out there and you can connect to it. It's right there for you, and it will help you love and cherish yourself. So yeah.
Amazing. Needed right now, but please go and find Geraldine and follow everything. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you ever so much, Geraldine. Really enjoyed having you. I feel like I could talk to you for ages.
Thank you very much.